Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 250 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on March 4th, 2025. How are all you wonderful folks doing today? Yeah, I hope you're doing well. I saw some really severe wind hit the Dallas area this morning, early this morning. So I think there was a lot of structural damage. So I hope you folks up north are okay. It's windy here too, but not quite like you guys experienced. That's wild. I think it was winds in excess of 80 miles an hour. And near Dallas, that's weird because it's inland and it's not really a tornado thing. It was just a high wind thing. It's pretty wild. So this is going to be a quick but useful episode today, I think, or I hope. We'll be hitting two main topics. The first is a new white paper that is published today. That's right. Along with this episode, you'll get Sound Signature Review 6180. Yeah, the Centurion Arms Maximus-L on the standard untuned short barrel Mark 18. Yeah, so dedicated 5.56 silencer, really high performance, and yet another manufacturer throwing their hat into the ring with 3D printing. Yeah, many of you folks know Centurion Arms, I think. You may know Monty, who runs the company. He's a former Teams guy, really a big weapons guy, very knowledgeable. It's neat to see them doing silencers now. So we're going to get into an introduction to that article today, and then we'll hit the technical deep dive next week, okay? On the following topic, I have a very short Walther PPK update for you, actually. We have received the pistol back from RMA, specifically the Walther PPK-SD, okay? So we received it back from RMA. I'm happy to report that we are no longer experiencing light strikes with the S&B ammunition. For those of you who missed episode, I believe it was episode 236 of the podcast back in November, we had some issues with the pistol. So you can hit that episode when you have a moment if you like. So I'm going to update you briefly today on that, okay? All right, we'll get on with the show now. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're so glad to have you. We're going to talk about suppressed small arms, which is really the name of the game here. And I'll put timestamps in the episode description for you to skip to wherever you would like. Keep in mind, if you're listening on YouTube or the website or Spotify or iTunes, wherever, there's always timestamps in the description. And you can skip to the topics at your leisure. If you want to hang around a little bit longer right now, frankly, I'm going to read some ads. This episode is brought to you by Legion Athletics. Nothing you do, exercise, sports, really anything is worth doing it without consistency. You have to do things all the time if you want to be good at them. Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, vitamins, minerals. They don't have everything you need, but they do have a lot of it. Visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes, code PewScience to save 20% off your first order. Keep using the code, get a net 10% off everything you buy forever. Get strong. It's important. This episode is also brought to you by Silencer Shop. That's right. Use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically. In turn, you will cut down on errors, simplify your silencer purchasing process. You get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good. No transfer fees, no paperwork errors, just you and your silencer with no drama. Truly silencer ownership simplified. Speaking of Silencer Shop, there's a Silencer Shop dealer, Top Gun Range, down in Houston. If you're in the Houston area, if you're just passing through, visit Top Gun, 15-lane indoor shooting range. You can put the firearms and silencers through their paces. They have the largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas, which is pretty nuts. Okay, check out their inventory on their website at topgunrange.com. This episode is also brought to you by Capital Armory. Did you know they just partnered with PSA, Palmetto State, who just so happens to be a corporate PewScience member, to fulfill orders to ship silencers directly to your door, and you can buy them from PSA. Isn't that crazy? So yeah, that's one thing about Capital Armory that's pretty good. It gives you another option to find silencers, and when you buy them from the comfort of your living room, you can have them shipped directly to that same living room. Whether you're using PSA or Capital Armory is what it is, because I think it's the same system. That's right. It really is that easy. Capital Armory, silencer shipped directly to your door. And finally, this podcast is brought to you by the PewScience Laboratory. I'm Jay. I'm a licensed and practicing engineer. I'm the technical director of this laboratory, and in the interest of public education, we have chosen to continue to do this podcast, to continue to sponsor it, communicate with the public, through this public research effort. And our overall goal is to continue to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. This is our 5th year of operation, and so far so good. You can visit our website at pewscience.com for the suppression rating. It's the simplest and most accurate hearing safe rating for suppressed small arms. It's based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone. Pew Science is the home of the silencer sound standard. 7 sections, the most in-depth and accurate silencer data analysis in the entire world. And it's all available 24/7 at pewscience.com. And something that is really important is that you can support this podcast and you can support Pew Science and all the public testing we do by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. That would really help out. There's a donate feature too. If you don't like monthly recurring things, you can always do a one-time thing. That'd be awesome. That donate button's on the review page and the podcast page. Every little bit helps. And if you're not into paying any money for anything because you just want to, you're just here because you're just like, you're happy to be here, that's cool. No problem. Just throw us a bone, spread the word, give us a like and a subscribe on the old YouTube or the Facebooks or the Instagrams or the wherever you're getting this podcast and this data. Track us down, spread the word, and let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. Okay, again, 2 topics for you today. Topic 1 is going to be the introduction to Article 6180 for the Centurion arm Maximus-L on the Mark 18, and then topic 2 will be the Walther PPK-SD 32 ACP update. Okay, let's go move into topic 1 at a time of 6 minutes and 37 seconds. Okay, yeah, I try to get the intro quickly. I know some people are impatient, and despite their impatience, I would like them to still listen, but you never know. So topic 1, sound signature review 6180. Isn't that crazy? We have 108. Is that right? Am I thinking about that right? Yeah, it's 180. Article 180. Centurion arms Maximus-L on the 5.56 standard untuned Mark 18. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. Yet another hybrid design on the market. Another one. Oh, the humanity. Yeah, it's a dedicated 5.56 model. It's made out of Inconel, but it's lightweight. And you got to ask yourself, well, does it bring the performance? And again, this is just the introductory discussion to this white paper that's being published today with the episode. Again, as always, we will get into the technical talk next week. But I kind of want to ask you something right now. Are you ready for something ridiculous? No, but seriously, things are accelerating. They are accelerating. As we enter the 5th year of Pew Science, I truly am astounded at what is happening. And furthermore, as we enter the 5th year of metal 3D printing being popularly used for silencers, because really that kind of the start of Pew Science also kind of corresponded with 3D metal printing becoming super popular for silencers. It's kind of weird that we all these things kind of started at that time. I'm even more amazed by that. And there are actually, in my opinion, there are 3 things converging right now. The first is high demand, and that's due to the low ATF wait times. Okay, that's just in case you didn't know, that's why demand is surging for silencers. Demand was already high, but that's what kicked it into high gear because the wait times are so quick. It never was about the tax, right? It's all about the wait. I mean, it is about the tax, but the weight's more important for most. The second thing that I think is converging is you have these mad scientist, creative individuals and companies, and they're putting forth ideas because they want to get a piece of this pie. And that's really great. I mean, not everyone that wants a piece of the pie is creative, but a lot of them are. So that's converging too. And I think the third thing that's converging is the manufacturing technology catching up to make the entire game more accessible than ever before, both to the crazy ideas and to people who want to make the silencers. Because at first, you sort of had to be a somewhat decent machinist to make a silencer. And when you look at a lot of these smaller silencer companies and legacy silencer companies, what you'll notice is one of the ways they got into it was that they might be really talented machinists, but that really many times has no bearing on how good the silencers are, right? Just because a silencer is made well doesn't mean it's going to perform well. You have to have, the manufacturing prowess and the engineering, or you can have the best manufacturing in the world, but if the design it doesn't have efficacy, well, who cares? Because you're here for performance. Yeah, I mean, it might look pretty, but maybe it's a dog, and so but when you look at this, because there's such accessible manufacturing technology now, I think all bets are off. And with regard to whether you're a machinist or not, and I think imaginations are running wild, and I think that's really cool. And so this article today, this is the Centurion Arms Maximus-L, and it's yet another company I do not think you had on your bingo card for 2025 to be producing high-performance silencers. How many times is this happening? It's been a couple, okay? And look, it's not because Centurion Arms doesn't make nice things. That's not why I'm saying that. It's just they're not a silencer company, like until now, I guess, right? And I actually didn't know a lot about Centurion Arms before they contacted us for testing. They make different AR systems, like AR rifle systems, like Mark 12 rifles, for example, stuff like that. A lot of different AR components, and it's run by a guy named Monty. He's a former SEAL, SEAL Team 4, SEAL Team 5, SEAL Team 7. And actually, when he was working at the command, I learned this today. I was speaking with him. When he was working at the command, he worked in combat system development and did testing and evaluation of different systems. So that's something he did kind of when he was working at his time at the command. So he's been involved with evaluating weapon systems, obviously, like in a testing environment. And he's also been involved in using them for his job on the teams. And I think at least 20 years of that. So that's cool in this context, because it's neat to see their company getting more into silencers, right? And I was speaking with him today, just kind of his background and what kind of got him into this. And he's just been a gun guy for a very, very long time, since he was young, like with his dad and stuff. And now, and then, he was a SEAL, and now he owns a weapons company, and now look at the silencer. So that's cool. I just I do get a kick out of some of the history of different companies, and where the folks come from, and what they're doing, and why they're doing it. I was actually able to meet Monty at SHOT Show face to face, which was cool. We were already working together, but I had never met him in person. So that's one of the reasons sometimes I go to SHOT Shows, so I can meet folks in person. So again, it's neat to see these folks getting into silencers, and I think the more the merrier, I would say. And again, I know I'm talking at a high level, because I think this is important for a lot of folks that both old and new to silencers. I think it's important for you guys to kind of sit back and look at this. I think the old tradition of silencers coming only from silencer companies is pretty much a thing of the past. Like, the great thing is that the old guard is definitely still making silencers, which I think is cool. Like, Silencer Co. still making silencers. Like, awesome. I think that's great. You want that. You definitely want that to keep happening. Another cool thing is companies like Centurion Arms are coming into the mix. I think that's awesome too. So I think both sides of this are awesome. I know there are some silencer companies that don't like this. You can imagine why. It's more competition, but if you're a silencer consumer like me, you're super happy because you love competition, because it's forcing the companies to innovate or die, Yeah. So so back to this, the Maximus-L, and I have one on my desk right here, the test specimen, actually. Quite interesting. It's 3D printed Inconel. Yeah. So a 3D printed Inconel rifle silencer. And we're going to get into the technical deep dive next week, per typical. But you need to know right now that this thing is only a little over 6 inches long. It's 14 ounces. It's hub capable. And I believe the performance to be non-trivial. Yeah, so they call it the Maximus-L, but it's only a little over 6 inches long. So how's that for an L can, right? So that's actually, maybe that's a preview of things to come. I don't know, but I will tell you right now that, yes, they're calling it the L, but it's not too much different in size than an RC2. Hint. Okay, that's like there's some like foreshadowing for you of a performance comparison that might be important for you to look at. Yeah, it's like it's on another level than the RC2. I can tell you that right now. So actually, it's a hybrid design in the purest sense of the word. It's actually fitting as one of the most explicit examples of a hybrid design that I can think of personally in the taxonomy. It's almost like someone took a traditional silencer and slapped an extra power up on it. I think that's a simple way of saying this. And when we go through the technical talk next week, when you go through the article when it's published with this episode tomorrow morning, I'm recording this the night before. When you go through the technical details, I think you're going to see what I mean. What happens when you use traditional ported straight cones and then you add an efficient annular path suppression mechanism? And that suppression mechanism that you're adding is really only possible with 3D printing. Like, what can happen? Well, you get this silencer. I mean, there really is no way to make this silencer without 3D printing unless you could make some components and then weld them or something. I mean, it wouldn't be like this. The silencer in its current form, I do not believe is possible to be made from subtractive manufacturing. Like, I do not think it's possible. Maybe there's something I don't know, but I have a feeling. Again, I'm not a machinist, but I'm pretty sure you can't build it from bar stock. So, I don't think it would work. So here we are. When you see the outside of the silencer, which you can see in the photo that accompanies this podcast episode, you're going to get a clue into some of the magic sauce. Yeah, you'll notice the outside of the silencer has an interesting texture or pattern on it. It's actually functional because what you are seeing in those ribs, those vertical ribs, all along longitudinally along the body of the silencer, all the way around the circumference, what you're seeing in those ribs is actually the outer surface of 36 individual annular passages with pretty neat stuff inside. Yeah, there's that's all the annulus, but they're all separate annular cavities, all like next to each other. Isn't that interesting? And when you look inside, if you have a borescope, which I do, you can see something cool inside each little tube. It's neat. And kind of a serendipitous benefit of that outer structure is you can use those outer ribs as a gripping surface too. Yeah, so it's easy to get a grip on the thing for removal or like installation onto your rifle, like taking it on and off. Like in my experience, when I have been shooting it, that's what I like about that texture. It looks strange to me, but it's actually welcome. I kind of you can kind of grip it. That's cool. So kind of a big, little bit zooming out to a larger view of the market here. I think this actually might be somewhat of a disruptor, like a market disruptor, in a way. And the wild thing is that you don't see a lot of people talking about this silencer yet. I think it's been on their website for a minute. I haven't seen a lot of discussion on the silencer internet in the typical places. But I think after this article is published, maybe that'll change when folks see the performance potential. I think when folks see the performance, they'll take it a little more seriously. I honestly would have no idea unless we tested it, right? I mean, frankly, I think folks are probably numb to the number of new silencers coming out right now and new companies. I mean, all these new companies popping up. To be frank with you, I completely understand. There are new companies every day. So I'm pleased this came across our desk. It was a fun test program. And it's really good to be able to put performance metrics with these new faces and new companies in the space. Like, it's cool when we have quantifiable performance data and analysis for these new things. Something you don't know something from Adam, comes out of nowhere. You might know the company, you don't know where the tech pedigree came from. You don't know anything about the technology, and so for that to come on the market, and you have no idea you can't just take it at face value that it's coming from Centurion Arms. Maybe you know them, or it's coming from XYZ company that you may know for years. If they don't make silencers, how are you supposed to know that the pedigree is solid of the design and the performance? We've been burned so many times before. I mean, heck, the whole reason we created Pew Science is we got burned so much. So when I see a new company immediately go for third-party testing like this, to me, I know I run Pew Science, but I mean, just as a consumer, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Good job. Now we can actually know what's happening. And in this case, it's a pretty big deal. So, and speaking of actually the test program itself, this is actually one of those test programs where we sat down to do the calculations and after the testing, and we were like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of wild. And then, you get the bore scope, and you start to look at some things just to do some sanity checks. You're like, wait, so how would that? You're like, and you're like, oh, that's clever. Because I try not to look really in depth at the silencer before we test it, just because I like to look at the data and see what I see, and then I like to then look at the silencer and be like, oh, I don't like to do it the other way around. I don't want any preconceived notion before I look at the calculations. I like to go blind. It's fun. For me, it's fun. And so I did that this time, actually. And, I looked at, I'm like, oh, that's so clever. It's so clever, some of the things they did, because it's actually a very simple design, but they added some stuff that's not simple. And I'm tickled that it kind of worked the way they did. I actually texted them the other day, and I told them how wild it was that they made it. Because I just get tickled at some of the ideas that people come up with and how they combine them. And I would say sometimes simplicity is the name of the game. If you just know what parts to tweak, if you really go back to basics and you really have strong fundamentals in design, boy, can you squeeze a lot of performance out of simple things as long as you combine them right. And I think that's cool. Now, I'm not saying this whole thing is simple, because there's definitely some complication in it, but a lot of it's more simple than you would think, which is cool. So remember last week in the Otter Creek Labs Infinity technical discussion, last episode, I think I mentioned how early time flow rate is really important, right? I think I mentioned that to you. And I used an analogy of the first expansion chamber of a silencer, or the blast chamber, being sort of like an airplane wing, not in the physics of how a wing works, but in its overall importance for the performance of the whole system. Okay, I think that analogy applies to this thing. There are things that happen early in this silencer that are so simple yet so important. Now. It's not all roses, I think. Now, could they do some things a little bit differently with the Maximus-L design? I think so, yeah, I do. But this is their first shot at it. Okay, so for a first try, I cannot emphasize to you how well it performs. This typically doesn't happen. Now, there are some things to note, so please check out the article, and we're going to dive in pretty deep next week. But overall, yeah, I think this is going to break some hearts for sure, just with the whole package. Think about this. So, Inconel silencer, and just so we're clear, so everyone's on the same page, if you're not technical, Inconel alloy has relatively high strength at high temperature, more so even than stainless steel. Stainless steel is no slouch. Heat-treated stainless steel is very strong and very great material for high pressure and temperature, but Inconel is a little bit of a cut above. That's why it's a little more expensive. The material itself is more expensive than stainless steel. And so when you look at an Inconel silencer, and there are many that weigh less than a pound and that are not that big and also have low back pressure and high performance, and you see that they're entering the market, and they're not only from just like one or two companies. You kind of have to stop and think, big picture, it means that everyone has to step up their game, right? This actually means that the next generation of silencers is already here. This means folks don't need to compromise as much anymore. And when you look at the pedigree, you'll see hybrid designs are starting to fill the top of the rankings. So it's only a matter of time until hybrid designs start pushing out the flow-through and traditional silencers, like all the way down the list, really. I mean, it's going to take a little while, but it's starting. You're going to see it happen, and you're going to continue to see it occur on all the weapon systems that reciprocate. Like, other than on bolt guns, you're going to see hybrids continue to push the envelope. And I think before you know it, they're going to be all that hardcore performance junkies use, I think. And what's that going to do? Well, it's going to give way to more of them. And that's my prediction. Heck, I mean, you're already seeing some of the hybrids hit the top of the bolt gun rankings too. Go to pewscience.com/rankings and go play. Innovate or die. I'm telling you, this is it. This is the performance gauntlet we've created. We made the NHRA for silencers. You come get your time slip. It's on purpose. What, you think we didn't want competition to happen? Serious, dude. It's crazy. Now, when you move deep into the technical performance of the Maximus-L, let me give you like a little bit of guide, not Cliff's notes, but like, just let me guide you a little bit because you're going to read this paper. You're going to want to look at the first round pop. You're going to want to look at the FRP. You're going to want to look at how maybe it's going to behave with high rates of fire. Maybe to understand some gassing with, omega and alpha, things like that. You're going to want to understand cleaning schedule. We don't have any data about that, but you want to think about that. By and large, again, I think the silencer it's going to slip into the rankings and break some hearts. Again, I was not super familiar with Centurion arms before they approached us for lab testing. But I've come to learn a little bit more about them. I already told you about the owner, and there's actually some nice armament lineage with some of the designs in like the rail systems. There's some things that I was talking with him about at SHOT, which were cool. It's neat. It's just neat to me. Like as an aside, it's not really silencer related, but it's more related to their AR platform stuff. So anyway, I am looking forward to learning more about them, more about their products, and I'm also very excited to show you folks how the silencer performs in the article. In this research report and next week's technical talk, I love doing this, and so this will be cool. So please take a look, see what you think, let it digest, let it marinate. As always, I will answer any questions you have. We can reconvene on this next week, and we'll go deep, just like we always do the week after a publication. I hope you folks like it, okay? If you, you're sitting here and you're like, man, I thought I already had a lot of 5.56 silencer choices. What's one more? It's like, I know, and there's more coming. It's not stopping. I mean, it's cool though, It's cool. Like, you go to the racetrack. Maybe you go to, I don't know, sometimes, depending where you live, you might go to the track and watch some cars and, then you see another one roll up you'd never seen before. You're like, oh, I wonder how fast that car is. And then it like blows your socks off. You're like, oh my God, that good to the quarter mile and what? You're like, where did that guy come from? You never know, right? I love it. I love it. So the report should be live on or around 0700 Central, U.S. Central Time, Wednesday, the 5th. Okay, so that concludes that. Let's talk about something completely different now at a time of 28 minutes and 57 seconds. Okay, topic 2, the Walther PPK-SD chambered in 32 ACP. We got it back from RMA. What was fixed? Yeah, apparently a common issue, a somewhat common issue, but we don't have any more light strikes. So I did want to give you a quick update because this is a potential future test host. So so I want to update you on the gun and also just this slow progress of the proving ground it's going through here at Pew Science. Because He's picky. Yeah, no, we are. But yeah, I think for right now, the saga has somewhat come to a conclusion. And, we finally got it back from RMA, from the manufacturer, and I haven't had to RMA many firearms in my life, although I've had to do it some. Particularly, you guys remember the MP5 Clone Wars back in the day with Todd Bailey. There's a name that should strike fear into hearts of HK enthusiasts. You young people that have access to the SP5 have no idea how good you have it. but yeah, so this is actually the third RMA that I've had to do recently. Another one was like from actually a very well-known military rifle manufacturer to remain nameless. Another one was from a well-known Soviet rifle manufacturer to remain nameless. The reason I'm not naming names right now is because one, it's not going to help you technically. The other one, I can't tell you about yet. But Walther, they happen to be in the United States for this gun, and that's who I RMA'd the pistol to. And you folks know, of course, that the company's lineage is German, right? So but you also have to know that the PPK-SD pistols, they're coming from the United States. All right, there's a distinction here. So what, you may ask, are the potential pitfalls of that, of like a domestically engineered German pistol or domestically produced German pistol? Yeah. I mean, there aren't pitfalls from U.S. manufactured weapons, like in general necessarily. I'm not trying to make that point. It's not that. Like, as an American, I would actually prefer if most of our armament was manufactured here, and quality was really high, and there was a return to American manufacturing prowess, and we could fly that flag, and I think that would be cool. There would be a cool nationalistic pride with that, which, hey, I'm in favor of that. And maybe we'll get there eventually, right? And I realize that's a little bit idealistic, of course, and maybe we won't get there. I don't know, not sure. Regardless, the pitfall that I think is real about American weapon manufacturing, specifically when it comes from European roots, is having to, maybe you have tooling and other processes that have to be brought up to speed domestically. And I think sometimes you get some teething issues and some growing pains, or maybe some pains caused by changes and adaptations that you're kind of forced to have to make happen. Maybe it's like a change pain. And I'm specifically referencing adopting firearm designs to new processes. So like when you make the parts, like maybe you have to change a print for whatever reason, an administrative reason, or maybe you have to change a manufacturing method because you have different tooling or a different process that you're more familiar with, or there's some economy reason, there's some cost reason, and maybe those factors make you change the whole process. I don't know. And in this particular case, what was the temporary casualty from the growing pain? And in this specific case, it was the main hammer spring guide of the gun. And sometimes people call that part a hammer strut. I've heard it called a hammer strut. I want to say the SIGs. I'm pretty familiar with the SIG P226, like at the armorer level, just because it was my first firearm I ever purchased. So I learned everything about it and how to take it all apart down to every single part. Just because I'm an engineer, I wanted to know how the gun worked because it was my first gun. So, I think on the SIG you would call it a hammer strut. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but on the Walther PPK you call it the mainspring guide. And the mainspring guide was what was replaced according to the repair paperwork that I received back with the pistol. And if you recall, the reason this pistol was sent for RMA is because we were getting light strikes with S&B ammunition. And the S&B ammunition is one of the hottest loads you can purchase for 32 ACP firearms that I know of in my investigations. And I am of the opinion that having a high velocity load out of a small gun like that is a good idea. It's prudent. You're going to need to penetrate if you want to be able to use the firearm for killing things, which is what guns are for. Guns are for killing things. They're weapons. I don't like when people are like, it's a sporting. No, it's a gun, dude. You're gonna kill something with it. That's what it's for. So like I think increasing penetration by increasing velocity it's very prudent. For a small arm that you carry. And since the S&B ammunition is so prolific, it seemed like a good idea to get the gun working with it. Seemed reasonable to me. And I have experienced light strikes with a firearm before. This is not my first rodeo. Okay, so when it happened, I immediately knew something was wrong with the gun. I was like, this is not acceptable. I see a lot of people having firearm malfunctions, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, it just didn't work with this ammo, or I'm like, whoa. I don't know if it's because like my first firearm was a SIG P226 and the reliability is like off the chart, but like where I come from, like malfunctions are not a good thing. Like, yeah, I know you need to know how to deal with them, but if your gun's malfunctioning, like that's like all my alarm bells go off. Like I don't like that at all. Like I think a lot of people are like a little lackadaisical. Maybe my standards are higher. I don't know. I knew something was wrong with the gun, and so and it angered me. Like I was not angry, I was frustrated. I was like, that sucks. I just bought this thing. And you go on the internet, because that's where all the gun experts are, don't you know? Spoiler alert, they're not on the internet. You go back in history, and not only in the American guns, but maybe some of the European guns, and people start talking about 32 ACP. And you read on these gun forums and stuff, because where else are you going to get info? You don't know. You're looking at that, you're Googling it, and people chalk up the light strikes with S&B ammunition to the primers being hard because it's manufactured in Europe. That's not American. You got this FUD thing happening. We're like, well, they just have hard primers, and our guns just can't. And that's a ammo thing. It's like, whoa. Wait a minute. That's a pretty strange cop-out to me. It's like, it's literally a Walther PPK, dude. If a PPK can't fire European 7.65 Browning short, like, the world's got a problem. And I'm not sure that's a world I want to hang out in and shoot in. Okay? That's not acceptable to me. So this issue was happening both suppressed and unsuppressed. Okay? And like I told you, was it episode 236 or something like that? I talked about this. And it started happening when I was shooting it with silencers, right? Like I was shooting it for a while, and I shot it unsuppressed just to for funsies, like, well, that was loud. And then, put a bunch of different silencers on it or whatever. And so I was thinking, it's like, okay, well, it's a direct blowback gun. So I had assumed that I had gummed up the firing pin channel or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, I was testing different, I wasn't testing, I was evaluating different silencers on the gun, and some of them had quite high back pressure. And because it's a blowback firearm, a lot of, there can be load reflections off of the first reflector. Different ammunition has different combustion byproducts or unburnt things or fillers that are collecting. I was like, maybe the firing pin channel is gummed up. I was like, well, man, this is just getting dirty fast, and boy, disappointing, but maybe that's it. And if that had been the case, it would have been very bad, because I was also using high flow rate silencers, and again, in my opinion, an SD pistol should function with silencers, number one, and it should really function with high flow silencers, like at a minimum, right? Things were not looking good for the PPK-SD. I was actually a little I would say I was disappointed. It's an iconic weapon. It has the whole James Bond history. I mean, why do you think I bought the thing, dude? Everyone wants to be James Bond, every silencer guy, right? So I'm stubborn, and I continue to troubleshoot it because I can't leave things alone. And I also got a hold of Walther USA Engineering. And how was that done? Well, it was made possible through social media. And I know social media is a curse on humanity, but it can also do some good sometimes. And they told me I should send in the pistol. And I did. And that was late last year. So the working theory of why this was causing light strikes with the S&B ammo, again, I knew it had something to do with the hammer drop, right? It's a hammer-fired gun, but I wasn't sure, again, if it was a spring issue or a firing pin tip issue, or maybe it was the mass of the firing pin. Maybe it was a firing pin channel issue, like I was like gumming up, like I was telling you about earlier, or maybe it could be some weird geometric issue with like some kind of leverage was off. What I didn't have was an exemplar PPK to which I could compare this PPK. Like, you feel me? Like if I had a known working PPK, I would have completely disassembled both pistols, and then I would have compared all the parts because I don't have the prints. So that I kind of would have. I'm like, well, I would have looked at everything in the chain, in the firing pin chain, and been like, oh, well, maybe this is different, and then I'd maybe swap some parts. That's what I would have done to troubleshoot. So that went through my mind about like buying another one, and then I was like, wait a minute. RMA seems more reasonable. I don't have time for this. Turns out my theory was zoning in on what Walther USA's engineering theory was too, because I talked to him about it. And there was a spring issue, I think, and I think they think that too, but it's not the spring, really. It's that, because the hammer spring, it fits over that strut, right, over the mainspring guide. And I think that they think that the spring was hanging up on the guide. And it was in my opinion, it's most likely the method of manufacturing the guide that was causing the issue. You see what I mean? See where we're going with this? So like maybe the edges aren't smooth enough on certain parts or something, or there's a little dimension off somewhere. Maybe the geometry was a little tweaked somewhere. Not sure. So when the hammer was allowed to fall after a trigger pull, the spring was not allowed to fully decompress at the optimal rate, you see. So things get hung up dynamically just enough to not allow the hammer to reach that full velocity before firing pin impact to initiate the primer, right? So you don't have quite enough energy. You don't have quite enough energy to initiate that primer. And so that actually sort of made me think. I was thinking about this back. I was thinking back to grad school. I had a roommate. He was doing a homemade trigger job on a Beretta 92, like in between engineering homework. I remember that, like just by polishing little parts, like meticulously. This guy was cool. I really liked that guy. He was like polishing these interfaces, and I tell you what, that Beretta 92 he had, I shot that thing. Boy, that trigger break was so crisp. He did a great job with that, but he took him forever to polish all the little stuff. And so I was thinking, well, you could probably polish the mainspring guide of your gun if you're having this problem, but where would you know how to polish? You'd have to look at it. So I don't know. Maybe you couldn't polish it enough. I'm not sure, but I guess it would depend which exact spot was hanging up. You know what I mean? So I think best thing to do, my advice would be, best thing to do, I think, if you're having this issue with your PPK, and I know there's some of you out there because the gun internet says so on these forums and everything, and people are saying, well, the S&B ammo has hard primers. It's like, it might, but your gun needs to be able to fire them. If you're having these issues with your PPK, suppressed or unsuppressed, which it can happen in both, I think your best course of action is to RMA it to Walther. I think their engineering team was helpful. I'm very pleased with them caring about it. So thank you. I'm not sure if a normal consumer would have gotten the same level of service as I did, but I have no indications it would be any different for a consumer. They certainly fixed the gun, and I can now carry that pistol to dinner in my pocket with confidence. That's a good thing. That's really cool. Yeah, just a note. All is not perfect all the time with the pistol. I have, and this is something I do on purpose, I have been able to get the pistol to malfunction if I ride the slide, meaning on the way back. Like if, it may fail to return all the way into battery, because the gun is so dang small that if you're like using a two-handed grip and you have your support hand thumb riding high and forward, like I tend to do when I shoot pistols, and if you ride that slide, you can you just mess the kinematics up because it doesn't have enough momentum, so it'll rattle on your finger and it'll slow down. It's not like, you could probably get that happen with a 9mm modern combat handgun too, but like I know, like with my SIG P226, if I ride the slide release lever, well, is it going to lock back on the last round? Probably not. Right? With the Walther PPK, you're riding the slide, and you might have a problem. So just be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. That's really the only malfunction I can induce in it, and it doesn't happen that often. It's only when I'm like thinking that I'm shooting my FN or my SIG, and I'm shooting the Walther, and it's like the manual of arms is different, and the size is different. So it's not really, these little pocket pistols are not. It's not a Glock, right? It's not a SIG. It's not a hammer fired SIG. It's a little baby pistol, and so sometimes you got to train with it more. So that's the only malfunction I can induce with it now so far. I tried a bunch of different ammunition with it. In fact, like in the interim, when it was at the manufacturer for RMA, I bought a bunch of 32 ammo just in anticipation of going out to shoot it. And that's what I did I was doing some ranch work on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, and I was able to do it. So yeah, just make sure. Now, blowback pistols, again, are a challenge to suppress, and that's one of the reasons I'm really interested in suppressing this one. My plan is to evaluate several different ammunition types, evaluate the combustion consistency through high-fidelity testing, and I think I'm going to chronograph them, and then I'll report that to you folks, and then we might even start testing silencers with it. Yes. Who knows? Could be cool. I have some ideas. We could do an audience participation thing. I don't know yet. I'm toying with some ideas. We're thinking about something. Just so you know, I was using the Cat SC on it just because I know it's high flow rate, and I figured if it malfunctioned with that, then that would be a huge red flag. And I got no malfunctions, except when I rode the slide forward, like I told you, which could happen unsuppressed too. So yeah, everything went bang, as it were. There were no light strikes. Oh, happy day. Yeah. So you got to ask yourself, when you look at these Walther PPKs, who will be able to tame the James Bond pistol in the smallest, coolest looking design envelope? Like, who's going to win, right? Who's going to be able to do it? Like, who's going to make a small PPK silencer? Like, no one wants a full-size 9mm silencer for this, dude. You want a small one that's still awesome, right? You want to be James Bond or not, dude? We're going to see. It'll be interesting to see which silencers do it. We have a lot of other stuff to do first, as you know, but just know, this is on the list. I have not forgot about the gun. I wanted to update you. Okay, so I hope this helps some folks with the PPK if you're having issues. I know I'm not the only one. Okay, so I hope this episode was informative for you today. Please check out the research article on the Centurion Arms Maximus-L. It's going to be live at 0700 Central Wednesday morning, and I hope you enjoy it. I do. Okay, so let it marinate, and we'll be back next week to talk technically about it. Okay, have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.